Greetings, Legionists. Arndelft here. So this is a Warhammer 40k animation only in death. And it is by Karos as well. Karos is kicking out some amazing stuff, I have to say. This one's lacking in a few areas. I did see some critiques on it that made a lot of sense, but we'll get to that after. Let's just go ahead and watch it, and if you've already seen it, you know how epic it is. If you haven't, sit back and enjoy.
Start history from so far, cousin. Have you acquired the teachings of Xenos witches to boast your pathetic imperium? His duty end.
Oh, okay, so that is just plain epic. And there were some critiques I saw on it where they said it was missing some of the impact. Like when they really hit each other, you didn't feel it quite so much. There were some people, I think, that complained about it, being too fast and disjointed. But in reality, if you were a mortal watching two Astartes fight, it would be even more of a blur than this. They would be going at it so fast that you would have serious trouble keeping track of it unless you had received some gene advancement yourself where your perceptions, at the very least your perceptions were enhanced, where you comprehended things, or at least were able to comprehend things faster. In any case, so in that bit, I think this is great. However, in another perspective, I also think that you might, when doing a video like this, we'd want to watch it from the Astartes perspective. Because if we were to fully watch it from just a mortal's perspective, all it would be is this huge blur until they parted from each other and were stalking each other around in a circle like they were at the very beginning. One part that I'm confused about is at one point it looked like the guy, when he knocks the bolt pistol out of the guy's hand, I'm not sure if he just chopped part of the bolt pistol off. It looked for a second like he had chopped the Ultramarine's hand off, which a chain axe, unless it had been a very good blow, having to hit right between the forearm of the armor and the gauntlet, happened to hit there right there on the joint, and had been a very powerful blow, the chain axe would not have been capable of just doing that to full-on power armor. But I think maybe he did just chop off part of it. One thing I love is how it's showing the power sword isn't just punching straight through the Chaos Space Marine's armor. Power swords are good, but they don't just, tear straight through. If you were to hit a joint or whatever, like I was talking about with the chain axe, you wouldn't need nearly so decisive or powerful of a blow when hitting a joint to cut straight through. Like, you wouldn't need nearly as much strength. with a power sword. But still, when hitting straight up the armor, it's not just going to be cutting straight through. And only in death, the only reason why you see that power sword wielded by the captain cut straight through that World Eater is because it was a very special and unique blade. Okay, and... oh, I think he's actually... I think he's saying, like, come at me, bro. Yeah, I think that's what he was doing right there. And at that point, the guy had already lost his bolt pistol. So, and then, yeah, right there, he loses the bolt pistol. And then he's pushing the guy back one-handed, because this is a Gladius. It's a one-handed weapon. It doesn't have an extended handle or blade. Short blade, short handle. Meant to be one-handed. If this were a longer blade with a longer handle, he could have immediately put more strength behind that one blade by going at it two-handed. But then again, going one-handed with a longer blade like that is more cumbersome and difficult. So it does make more sense that you'd want to go in bolt pistol and Gladius like this. So I'm not... his choice in weaponry was perfect for his position. Anyway, that right there, I think, was part of the bolt pistol or something. I don't know. He throws something at the guy's head. I just wasn't rightly sure what it was. Anyway, I just love this fight. It is so good in my opinion. And then, boom! He does this perfect blow and chops off one of the Chaos Space Marine's arms. Now, outright, this is not a lethal blow like it would be to a mortal person, where then they would bleed out rather quickly. Because even just having an artery severed in your arm, you start to bleed out relatively quickly. But they're like in one of the novels, there's a Custodes, Blastall. What was that novel? Okay, well, I don't know which one it was, but it was a scene where there's a Custodes sitting down because he's just literally been fighting nonstop for hours upon hours, fighting Chaos Space Marines, and he's just sitting down from the exhaustion, and he looks up and he sees this Chaos Space Marine World Eater dragging himself closer because he's been chopped in half at the torso. I mean, like, at the waist. His legs are gone. And he's not dead. And I don't know if the wound was cauterized, and maybe that's why he didn't bleed out, but I think it was just because Astartes' blood cauterizes much faster than regular blood from any mortal person. One of the reasons why they can survive so many more wounds than a regular person can. So while this was a rather crippling blow, it wasn't a lethal one. Now, my confusion starts when this guy does a monologue right here saying the Astartes fallen so low that you require witches training, Eldar witches training to, let's just listen to it.
The Astartes truly fallen so far, cousin. Have you required the teachings of Xenos witches to boast your pathetic imperium?
Okay. I'm not sure where that came from. That confused me. Maybe something about this particular Ultramarine's fighting style reminded the Chaos Space Marine of fighting Eldar witches. And so that's when he puts out, that particular insult, trying to insult him, because both of, back in their origins, Xenos, Eldar, and all other Xenos are, looked down upon. They're seen as inferior and lesser and whatnot. However, if you've read through the codex of, who was it? Well, I think both codexes, but there was... I forget which codex it was. But there's a codex out there that details the events leading up to the Eldar saving Saint Celestine, some Black Templars, and this was from the survivors of Cadia. And they had just, their ship had been destroyed as they were fleeing Cadia. They had just been about to escape, but they failed. And, let me see. And there was... Oh, come on, words! I can't remember the details. But anyway, there is sort of been a truce between the Eldar and the Imperium now. And that was one of the reasons why when Guilliman announces his new crusade, he does not outright condemn the Eldar. He says, those who oppose us. Just like in the Dominus Crusade, when he announces the beginning of it. And then there was a 100-year period, I think, where the Dominus Crusade was going on between what is now technically modern day Warhammer 40k. Per se, where things are, new and going on. In any case, right here, in this particular scene, as this Chaos Space Marine slanders this Ultramarine, I'm not sure, that might be a dead Ultramarine, but it looks to have the same symbol as the guys off to the right. So I think it's a dead Chaos Space Marine. And that looks like a Chaos Rhino. I see all the spikes coming off of it. So that gives me the impression that's a Chaos Rhino, not Ultramarine. And that looks like several dead stacked Chaos Space Marines. So this Ultramarine is reaching down and taking a weapon off of this Chaos Space Marine's corpse. Whether it was the weapon that was impaled in him that was killed with him, or whether it's actually his weapon and the Ultramarine is picking up a Chaos Space Marine weapon to fight this Chaos Space Marine with. Let me see if I can skip ahead frame by frame a little bit here so we can maybe... no, they get back into the action sequence too quickly. I have a really hard time telling here. But it looks like he's almost wrenching the weapon out of the Chaos Space Marine before he leaps into combat. I don't know. It is just difficult to tell. But, yeah, then he leaps back into combat, and I think the fight ends pretty quickly after this scene. Even though this Chaos Space Marine's down to one limb, I don't think the Ultramarine was underestimating him. I just think the Chaos Space Marine, obviously a veteran of who knows how many wars, I got almost the impression that he might have been a long war veteran. But in any case, with that being the case, he was obviously giving it his everything at this point. And at some point, the Power Sword, during this fight scene where things are blurry, the Power Sword gets knocked out of the Ultramarine's hands, and he's just down to the Chainsword that he got off the Chaos Space Marine. Which, as I look at it from this angle, does look like a Chaos Space Marine weapon. It looks like it has a gold arrow on it, which is reminiscent, I think, of Chaos weapons. Not sure. But anyway, then they close into combat again. Oh, he holds it up next to him in that point. So let's take a look. Yeah, I would definitely guess that's a Chaos Space Marine weapon the Ultramarine picked up off of him. Okay, so then the Ultramarine dodges the guy's incoming blow, leaps to the ground at his Power Sword, but as he comes up to counter the blow of the incoming Khorne Berserker, I think the Chaos Space Marine was just too fast for him and got that chain axe into the Ultramarine's neck before he could get the guard up with the chainsword he had in his hands. And as you can see, at this point, the Chaos Space Marine was holding his chain axe much further up the haft so that he could put more torque in behind it to stab into the Ultramarine's neck. And in this moment, the Ultramarine, with his death now on him, because he's just been dealt a mortal blow, manages to cry out only in death and stabs his power sword into what you can obviously see as the weaker armor joint at the waist here, where, as I said earlier, a power sword can fit into, without nearly as much force, punch in like that through that weaker armor right there. And at that point, the Chaos Space Marine, just having been stabbed right there, at first, massive amount of pain and whatnot. And mind you, these guys, all Space Marines, all Astartes, they're the amount, it's like Jason Bourne. All Astartes are essentially like Jason Bourne. That's the amount of training they receive. So imagine Jason Bourne to begin with, and then give him the physical attributes of a Space Marine, and then put him in power armor. He takes so many dang hits and crap like that, gets shot and all that stuff. So, just imagine that. And believe it or not, all Space Marines would be a step up from Jason Bourne's training and mentality. Believe it or not. Which is why a Space Marine can have an arm chopped off and still fight. I'm not saying Jason Bourne couldn't, but physically that would have killed him. And maybe mentally he could have taken an arm chopped off and still fought. But, because goodness knows, he got shot plenty of times. Jason Bourne did. Anyway, but in this moment, he finishes by, raising his weapon up and slamming it back down into the Ultramarine's neck to finish off the kill, to make sure the Ultramarine isn't going to live through this. And then, as he lets go of that weapon and then looks up into the sky, he finishes the phrase the Ultramarine started and says, "Does duty end?" And in that moment right there, I honestly felt like there was a moment of kinship between the two of them. As the Chaos Space Marine remembers in his ancient history, which is one of the reasons why I feel like he was a veteran of the Long War, when he received his original Astartes training, when he was probably a loyalist, and had that original training. And in that one moment, finishing the phrase before he too falls dead to the ground. And from what I know of a power sword, that wound right there would not have been outright lethal to him. But the fact that it's been stuck up into his gut and whatnot, from what I understand of a power weapon, that would be cooking his insides at that point. Which is why for a moment he's able to stand, but then the weapon is, cooking him from the inside out. And as he loses strength, passes out and most definitely dies from the active power sword inside of him. So, that's my interpretation of the fight. What I thought was going on there. And definitely 2 thumbs way up. I know that there were some errors in here. People couldn't quite feel the impact and all of that. But still, amazing video. And I would, I'm going to leave a link down in the description below. Go show Karis your support. Encourage him to get more of this stuff out. Love seeing the little fan films here. Only in Death was not Only in Death, sorry. Death of Hope was amazing, but it was a much higher graphics quality and takes a lot more time to work on, and so in depth. I mean, just so much more. Mind you, I'm not an animator, but I am under the assumption that this type of animation takes less work. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I think it takes less work. But either way, in a way, I would prefer this kind of animation just so I could see the story. Just so I could see the epicness of these stories unfolding. Mind you, I prefer the animation of Death of Hope because it's amazing. But this stuff is awesome. It's well done. And I love, honestly, the monologues and whatnot. Pity the Guardsman, also by Karos, amazing. In any case, please let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Did you like this video? Did you not? If you did, go show Karis your support. Follow the link in the description. And did you like my review of it? And if you didn't like my review, please let me know why. If you did, please throw the video a like. And if you're new to the channel and genuinely enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing. In any case, don't get into too much trouble or do it. It's always up to you. Toodles!